You're listening to a special episode of The Kempire here on the Kempire Radio Network. Welcome back, guys, to The Kempire here on the Kempire Radio Network. As promised, I have done several million listens to the new Brandy album, B7. And if you are a patron of the Kempire Radio Network, then you're getting an exclusive first listen to this review. If you want to become a patron, head on over to the description box so you can become a patron of the Kempire Radio Network and to support what we're trying to do here. So let's talk about it. Brandy has not released an album since 2011. Her last album was almost 8 years ago. I remember 2011 distinctly because I was running around the streets at every event here in New York City to be there for it, to see it. Because it had been a while since she had released music then. And Brandy's one of those types of artists that likes to take breaks in between her music. She's not, like some of the artists that put out albums every year. She just doesn't do music like that. And she's been saying in a lot of different interviews that that's part of what she was doing with this album, B7. She had to take the time to, first of all, get through some of the things that she went through. A lot has happened since 2011. She broke up with her fiance. She's been dating other people since then. And you can hear it clearly on this album, some of those ups and downs since then. But this episode, I want to talk about the album. As someone that's interviewed Brandy several different times, she's been a supporter of the Kempire Radio Network. I know people expect this review to be a little biased. And of course, I'm going to be a little biased just because I love Brandy, number one. I love her voice, number two. And number three, she's always been supportive of the show. So I'm not going to be horrendously mean. But I don't really have to be, because Brandy has a catalog of music that continues to evolve and grow in ways that even her fans of hers are not necessarily ready for. So I wasn't sure what to expect after hearing the first single, Baby Mama. We talked about the song a little bit here on the show. And I said, when I learned what this song could mean for Brandy and having, Sarah during the time that she did and not really able to really embrace what being a baby mama is, I had a different perspective of the song. And of course, after listening to it several times and seeing the video, it grew on me. I still don't think Chance the Rapper was necessary for the song, even after several listens. But, in the industry, he's a hot rapper. They were like, let's throw the hot rapper on there. Maybe we'll get some traction from that. That's business. I get it. Still don't think he was necessary for this particular project. But Baby Mama was something that threw us off because I did not expect to hear the vulnerability and the experimentation with B7 after hearing Baby Mama. But I get why Baby Mama fits, because it's part of Brandy's personal story, the one that she's trying to tell us in a very metaphoric, artistic, and creative way without telling us the full story. But I want to examine each song with you. And I want to hear your opinions in our comment section on Instagram or on Twitter. I know that not everyone will agree with me, which is fine. That's what makes the world great. And that's why it took me a while. I wanted to listen to the album, but there was some hesitation because I know that there are a lot of Brandy fans that follow our show. And I know that there are a lot of people that will disagree with some of the things that I'm sharing and that other people have shared in regards to this new project, B7. So let's jump right on in. Saving All My Love. All right, so Saving All My Love, the first track. It's really important for any album to start off an album with something that's going to really grab the listener's attention. But this explains perfectly why Brandy chose this particular song. I know she did a recent interview where she says, she doesn't really have any deep method on how she sequences the songs and things like that for her albums. But this song makes sense why it's the first one, because she starts off with saying, sorry for my tardy. Long time I was brokenhearted, segueing, talking about her big hit, Brokenhearted. Hearted and guarded. A target, goddamn, can we let me live? Can we let me live? She also pays ode to Whitney Houston in this song along with, Saving All My Love, one of Whitney Houston's biggest hits, but also saying, I'm as solid as a rock without the boat, kind of like the goat. Come on now. But I ain't saving all my love. So, it's interesting. At first I didn't love this song. The first couple of songs of this album, I was like, I don't know. But what I can appreciate about the first couple of songs is Brandy experimenting with sounds, experimenting with her voice. I have to say, throughout the album, I heard falsetto like I've never heard Brandy use falsetto before. Lyrically, it's not my favorite of albums. I know Brandy explored working with different people this time around, including writing more on this particular album. But as someone who's written songs before, and if I look at some of the first songs that I've ever written before, I cringe. I found some the other day thinking about the lyrics and things like that. Of course, I'm not saying Brandy's on, in that same boat in regards to lyrics. It's definitely not my favorite lyrical album, but the sounds, the vocals that she's using throughout the album, I can definitely enjoy. Unconditional Oceans. So I'll let you guys into a little secret on what I'm doing behind the scenes. I'm listening to the songs and reading the lyrics again. As as I said to you before, I'd listened to the album, I can't tell you the amount of times in the last week. But it's important that I kind of read the lyrics, and shout out to the Brandy blog for posting these lyrics. I thought it was important to read the lyrics because it really can change your feeling about a song and make you feel a little bit deeper connection to what she's talking about. And as I mentioned before, lyrically, this wasn't my favorite album, but then I'm reminded, because, I've had several different interviews and conversations with Brandy. Brandy can be so deep and so creative in the way that she says things. And now I'm seeing lyrically how she says things. She's trying to tell us something without telling us something. And so as I'm reading Unconditional Oceans, which wasn't one of my favorite songs from the project, but it's becoming slowly a favorite, because as you read the lyrics, you're sort of like, what is she talking about? And sometimes I wish singers and songwriters would tell us what they're talking about. But I also understand the flip side. They want you to draw your own conclusions for your own personal self. But I really would love to know what Brandy was feeling when she was creating this song, Unconditional Oceans. And I just want to read a couple of lyrics. Distraction curves, my racing nerves, suicidal. Oh, I contemplate for heaven's sake. Your help is due, yeah, I know with you. It be all about the timing, anxious to find my silver lining. I think it's way beyond the clouds. Those lines, to me, lyrically were beautiful, because I was like, oh, wait a second. This is where it clicked for me. Brandy's, she's lyrically taking us in a different place. And I see why fans of Brandy's have been saying, I don't know about these certain songs. I'm not sure what she's trying to say. I'm getting, and that this is, Brandy being so guarded. You have to remember, Brandy became a huge mega star in her teens and has gone through so many different things in regards to people criticizing who she is, how she lives, who she's dating, what she's doing. So she's trying to tell us about her, but in such a creative way. I don't think we're able to really appreciate that just yet. I think a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, we'll look back on B7 and be like, whoa, I get what she's trying to do here. And that's one of the big takeaways from B7 for me, is that Brandy took risks. And I think that's the problem with R&B lately. There are a lot of great R&B artists taking risks out there, but Brandy was, if you listen to some of her unreleased projects, or unreleased music, I should say, there's a lot of that experimentation that she was doing that she never really put into the albums, besides, of course, Full Moon and, Never Say Never, creating that sound. But there's a lot of unreleased music that Brandy had that she never put on, like Human or, 211. In between those particular albums, we didn't really see the experimentation on those particular projects. We saw it on Aphrodisiac, which still remains one of my all-time favorite Brandy albums. And we're going to get back to the producers and people that she worked with with B7. But I would love to see a reunion with Brandy and Timbaland, because there was some magic that we have not seen since her work with Dark Child. Rather Be. All right, let's talk about one of my favorite tracks. It was actually a track that they released early if you pre-ordered Brandy's album. And I think it was the perfect song to get people excited, because it's one of the great songs on B7. Written by, I think Brandy's co-written on here, but also our girl Victoria Monet wrote this song. I love it because this is another personal song that we're getting from Brandy, because we're seeing throughout the album, from the intro to Rather Be, the journey that she's been taking with this album over the last 8 years. So just some of the lyrics, because I've been singing this song to myself. Call me more a little. Your voice makes me feel better. Why you even trying to ignore me? But there's the other ways to get my attention. Just be here for me. Baby, I'd rather be kissing you. I think everyone can relate to being in a situation where there's just someone that you just really want to be with, but their behavior is just showing opposite. But you know that they kind of want you to, you know what I mean? But there is this journey that we're taking through B7, from the beginning to Rather Be. And then as we go through the other songs, we see the confidence that Brandy is getting, through whatever relationship issues she's had over the last few years. She's talking about it in a very metaphoric way. But Rather Be is definitely one of my favorite songs on B7. And I hope that we get a video for it as well. Then we transition into the interludes. And I'm just going to say, and this might be controversial too, which I don't care. I don't like the interludes. I don't want the interludes. I mean, at the end of the day, this is Brandy's baby, so she can put, interludes wherever she wants to put them and say what she wants to, because she feels like that's going to fill the space of what, the story that she's trying to tell. I could have did without the interludes. I'm still trying to figure out, what is it saying? What's happening there? That's one other issue, and I've seen a lot of other reviews say it too, the mixing. The mixing's not the greatest on every part of the album, but there are a lot of songs out there right now that have terrible mixing. But also remember, a lot of these people that are saying there's terrible mixing, none of us are engineers or mixers. I need a mixer to say, yeah, no, the mixing on this is terrible. If you're a reviewer and you write reviews, I mean, yeah, you're listening to music all the time, so you do have an idea of how mixing should sound, how quality of music sounds should go. But I can definitely, even with my amateur ear of mixing, even though, I have a history of writing and producing and singing music myself, mixing is so important because it can make a great song even greater, or terrible mixing can make it terrible, even though you have a great voice and great lyrics. So that's just one of the issues that I have. But like I said, this is Brandy's first independent project. So I kind of feel like this is Brandy raw. You know what I mean? I feel like this is really Brandy giving it to us. Okay, you wanted an album? Here you go. This is me. This is my story. These are the way that I want to write the lyrics. This is the way I want to sing on here. And this is how the mixing is going to be. Take it. Lucid Dreams. All right, we got to talk about this song. It's definitely my least favorite on the album, and it has not grown on me. To me, it's sort of like she was creating a moment. That's one thing I have to say with her vocals, and like I said, she's experimenting more with her falsetto. That I can really enjoy. And of course, it's signature Brandy, harmonies and things like that. But I can see with the title of the song and the way the song is approached, it definitely sets a mood. You could probably have this on in the background and be like, okay, all right, until the next song. It's definitely, I probably skip over this track more than any other of the other tracks at all. So we're just going to move into the next song. Borderline. All right, this is the second single officially. We saw the video. It came out with the album B7. Borderline has to be one of my favorite tracks on the album because it really is very personal. Overall, the album is very personal, but this really goes deep, and I love the visual that she gave us. I wish she gave us some more to the story and plot of the video because I feel like they could have really done a lot with this particular song and story, but visually, Brandy looked stunning. I remember seeing the snippet preview that they had put out before the official premiere, and I was like, we're gonna get something epic. And I kind of wish we got more from the video that just because of the song is so personal and Brandy looks so good in the video. I do feel like they could have done more with the story. But overall, the song itself, videos aren't what they used to be, and you don't see a lot of people putting a lot into the videos anymore unless you're like a huge artist like Lady Gaga or, Beyonce or something like that. However, the song is so personal. And I love the fact that she goes there with the vulnerability where she says, a lot of people, at the end of the video, she expresses how mental health is so important now more than ever. So a lot of people are wondering, was she talking about herself? But in the song, I can see how, she's metaphorically talking about being crazy because you're in love. If you've ever been in love and you've ever had your heart broken, you know how that feels. You almost feel like you've lost your mind. However, the difference is that you're able to come back from it. And I love the lyrics here where she really gets vulnerable. And she says, don't want to be schizo this time. Never, ever cheat. Never lie to me. I'm the most jealous girl in the whole wide world. Don't ever hurt me. I'll change on you. Okay. She said, I will change on you. But you know women like that. You know men like that. I know men like that. If you ever cheat on them, they turn into a whole different person. But Brandy's putting it out there and saying, that's the kind of girl I am. So don't do it. Don't test me. But I love the melody of the song. I love what she does vocally. That's the thing about Brandy that so many singers and music lovers appreciate. Is what she does with her voice. That's why they call her the vocal Bible. I know it's debatable, but if you really look at what Brandy does with her voice and the vocal productions, we talked about that with LaShawn, may he rest in peace, when he was here on why it wasn't just him. It was the magic of her voice and what she wanted to do with it. You get to see that in Borderline. And that's why I love the song. It's one of my favorites off the album. No Tomorrow. Okay, so this next song, this has to be the next single. And I know I've heard a lot of people say that this is one of their favorite songs off of the new project B7. No Tomorrow to me is such a vibe. And I think this is the song that's going to bring in those people that aren't fans already of Brandy that will be like, oh, this is a vibe. It's just vibey. I love the melody of the song. And I love what she's talking about. Brandy is getting vulnerable here, guys. If you look at the deeper message, if you read the lyrics, you're like, wait a second, who is she talking about? Can we just kind of go through the lyrics? Where she says, you don't know it yet. I'll tell you when you're ready. When you stare at me, I feel so beautiful. How you do it like that? Opposites attract. When you stare at me, I feel so beautiful. I'm going to blow your phone up in case there is no tomorrow. That part, I was sort of like, okay, I can appreciate what she's saying here. Again, she's getting vulnerable. She's showing you this is the woman I am in a relationship or when I like someone. It couldn't be me because I'm not that person. I'm a little bit more, no, I'm not going to blow your phone up. If you don't, I'll call you once or twice. I'm not going to blow your phone up. But Brandy's getting so personal because the Brandy that we've seen, growing up has really given us an image. Of course, she's gotten personal through her songs and things like that before. But I think there's a vulnerability here with these new songs that we haven't seen before. And you see it again right after Borderline, where she jumps and she's saying it even more here. This is the type of woman that I am. Say something. All right, let's talk about this song. Again, Brandy is getting so hard here. I feel like this should have been the song to open up the album because she's just talking that mess. You know what I mean? This is a Brandy that we get to see in so many different ways. And when I interviewed her 5 years ago backstage at the Chicago Musical here in New York, it was really interesting to see this level of confidence that she had found while being on Broadway. And I feel like that's what she, I wouldn't be surprised if she recorded this around that time because it's such a strength that we get here. I mean, she says, I'm on the fence because I'm under attack, been on the fence and I ain't going back, questioned some things that I thought was a fact, said some things I could never take back. And we know Brandy had a moment where she was doing those clapbacks and, she was speaking her mind. So I feel like she's talking about that a little bit. She says, figures of speech. I put you on the map. You take back promises. Where did they go? Acting out, but no one's there for the show. Hurt you my bad, but how low can you go? Who's she talking about? I have an idea who she might be talking about if you kind of look through the last couple of years. Rumors and things like that of who Brandy was dating. And I mean, there's a lot of rumors. I mean, I would love to ask her, but is she really going to tell us? Probably not. But this song is one of my favorites just because of the vibe, just because of the lyrics, just because of the way she's singing it, the confidence I hear in her voice with this song. This has to be a single. I would love to see a video for this as well. Also shout out to DJ Camper. I have to give credit to him as well because he is probably one of the main producers on here. Brandy thrives off of working with just like a small group of producers just for each project. And so she worked with DJ Camper on the majority of this particular project. Although it's not my favorite of Brandy's music, you have to give it to her and to him that she felt comfortable enough bearing her soul on this particular project and coming up with some really great songs like Say Something. I Am More. All right, let's talk about it because I have to say, this for all the females out there, I feel like this is a song that they can relate to and they can find confidence in. And I'm a big advocate on the I ams. I am powerful, I am strong, I am, whatever it may be, there's a level of power that follows the words I am. I'm a big advocate about it. If you don't follow Know Better, Do Better, Live Better here on the Kempire Radio Network, please do. We talk about the importance of words and the strength and wellness and things like that. So I take this as Brandy's declaration of whatever's going on in her life. She's like, you need to know no matter what's going on, I know my worth. And she talks about it in verse 2 where she says, I can't be the other woman, mistress, or a side piece order. I need more because I am more. Okay? So I love the vibe of that song. I love the energy of that song. I think Brandy, vocally, we could go through every song and talk about vocally what she's doing and how she's experimenting. I think she's doing that throughout the entire album, but she's really singing her butt off in I Am More. So I can see that there's a level of power coming with this. I Am More, I probably could have seen coming closer to the end of the album, if not the final song. And we'll get to the final song because I'm not sure if that should have been the final song because I feel like this is where Brandy should be at the end of the album, but maybe she isn't. But we're going to talk about it. High Heels. All right, let's talk about it. Brandy finally brings Sarah on a song, and it's not my favorite of the album, but I like the vibe of it. It's very the sound of it. It's not your typical R&B song. It's not your typical hip hop song. And like I said before, we're getting a more vulnerable Brandy because I remember when I interviewed Brandy, I don't know if you remember which interview this was because we've interviewed her a couple of times. Well, not more than a couple of times. But I said to her, it's like, we want to see you rap more. But she had given up on it because so many people were, critical of it. But I know that a lot of the fans love it when Brandy raps. And I feel like she had the cosign of people like Timbaland saying, no, you should rap. I think if Brandy had really embraced the rapping, it probably would have taken her on another level in regards to the music industry because now she's not just an R&B artist. She's doing hip hop. And I think, hip hop brings you to like the different charts and different radio stations and things like that. So we're getting that on this album, and I didn't expect that. And that to me was a Brandy saying, I don't give a flying, whatever, what anyone thinks. I'm going to do me on this project. So High Heels to me, first of all, I love the fact Sarah has such a beautiful voice. I can't wait to see what she does musically. I know she released a single earlier this year, and I thought she has such a beautiful voice. So it'd really be interesting to see what she does next with her music. I think right now she's trying to find what sound she wants. But she also has a very great personality. I've seen some YouTube videos of Sarah. So I'm actually very excited to see what she does musically. High Heels, like I said, it's not my favorite track on the album, but I love what the message is about. And I also love that we're getting rapping Brandy on this album. So I'm not going to go into Baby Mama or Love Again just because, I've already spoken about Baby Mama already multiple times, including this episode. Love Again, I was hoping to get the solo version, but I know the solo version is available on her YouTube. However, I get it too, business-wise, streams and things like that. It makes sense to put the version with Daniel Caesar, the sometimes problematic Daniel Caesar. But the version with just Brandy, that gives me life. That's the one I listen to. That's my favorite version of that, but I get it. It had to be on the album. Bipolar. All right, so this last song, Bipolar, still is a tongue twister for me. I feel like they should just called it Bipolar. That would have been better for me personally. So when I'm saying it, it's just easier to say. And I think when I first saw it, I was sort of like, oh, what is she trying to say here? But again, like the rest of the album, I feel like Brandy is trying to tell us a story without giving us the specific details. We don't see a lot of artists do that anymore. We have artists that just sort of like, this is what it is I'm talking about. But I think she's using bipolar as a metaphor for something. But these lyrics really touch me. I mean, from the very beginning of the song, I'm like, okay, now this is classic R&B, classic Brandy, just giving us a beautiful ballad. However, with this particular song, I was, as I said before, I was a little shocked that this is the way that she was closing out the album. I kind of felt like maybe this should have been somewhere in the middle, because the album really, to me, is a celebration of her vulnerability, of her not really caring what other people think or say about her music. It really is a celebration of that throughout the album. So I kind of feel like this should have probably been maybe right after Say Something. But I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, this is her album. This is the way she wants to close it out. But it's also, I get also why it would be the last song, because I think it's another way of her just sort of saying goodbye to all of that in this last song. Can we talk about who I think this song is about? And I'm sure you guys have been already dissecting this song and trying to figure it out. And to me, it's pretty obvious who the song is about, where she says, you were different, played me like a fool. All you really want was 15% of my moves. Because didn't Ryan, not cousin Ryan, didn't Ryan, her ex-fiance, work with her as well behind the scenes? She says, you were a mute, a fluke with so many needs, a fraud living with me and Seed. Remember when she was on Wendy, she said that he was living with her? I'm playing the detective right now. She said, a fraud living with me and Seed. One day I woke up and now my love is unstuck. I can see who you really are because I'm a star. And then she later goes on to say, that's why I lost your ring and you can keep your last name. So, I mean, there's nobody else that we know of that Brandy's been engaged to. So to me, this, at least part of this song is about Ryan. So I also kind of get why this is at the end, because I feel like this is sort of her, it's still being vulnerable to the world and her fans about what happened. Because we didn't really know what happened. We just sort of knew that they weren't together anymore. So I feel like this is Brandy's way of saying, this is what happened, y'all. This is why I had to get away from that situation. But beautiful vocals, beautiful typical Brandy harmonies, and just the layering and the vocal arrangements, beautiful classic R&B ballad. It's very different in comparison to some of the other songs that we saw here on this particular, project B7. But like I said to you before, I wanted to give you an honest review after listening to the album several different times. And I saw a lot of people say, how are these critics able to give an honest review of a project from listening to the album once or, for a couple of days? And some people can do that, and some people can really dissect music and be able to give you an overview. But I'm giving you my perspective after listening for about a week. It's almost a week now that I've been listening to this project. And several times on my runs, at home, and just sort of, listening. And even for this episode, I wanted to re-listen as I'm talking about each song. And I have to say, overall, B7, as I said throughout this episode, is definitely probably, and I don't know if personal is the right word, vulnerable is probably the better word. Because I feel like Brandy's been personal in her other songs and other albums and projects. But this is probably the most vulnerable that we've ever seen Brandy. Just saying, you know what? I want to do harmonies like this. I want to do songs like this. I want to write on every song. I want to talk about these stories. I don't want to say specifically who I'm talking about, but I'm going to send out those hints, and you guys put it together. And I've been contemplating, putting all the pieces together. But you know what? Putting the pieces together isn't as important as relating the songs to your own life and finding meaning in those songs for yourself. And I've done that. And I have to say, I love this album. Is it my favorite Brandy album? It's hard to say. After, it hasn't even really been a week of having the album. I feel like certain albums have become Brandy albums for me. I know a lot of people say Full Moon is the album for them. I love Never Say Never. That's the first album that really got me into Brandy music. So, I didn't love the first album. And I've said that before here on the show. But I feel like Brandy found her voice with Never Say Never. She did amazing work with Full Moon that didn't really get the justice that it deserved because of a lot of different things. And the same with Aphrodisiac. Aphrodisiac, to me, that was the moment where I felt like Brandy was really stepping out and taking risks. And I think because it didn't do well, she sort of went back into her shell and didn't really explore that side of herself again until now. I feel like she's really doing that with B7. And I'm excited that the next project, because I feel like she cracked herself open with B7, I'm excited to see what the next album would sound like and what she will say on that next project. So congratulations to Brandy and to all the people, all the songwriters and producers that worked on this project, because we celebrate the people behind the scenes because we feel like they're just as important. And in celebration of that, I definitely want to just look up to the heavens and just say thank you to LaShawn Daniels for the music that he's created in his lifetime here on Earth. And that's the great thing about music. We may go, but the music lives on. So this episode is dedicated to my friend and former guest of the Kempire Radio show, LaShawn Big Shiz Daniels. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of The Kempire here on the Kempire Radio Network. Don't forget, the Kempire Radio Network is available on Google and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. Brandy's new album, B7, is also available worldwide. Be sure to support it as well.